no shortages of videos online about questions you should ask at the end of your interview, but I've been in recruitment for 15 years, and these are the 5 questions I would never leave an interview without asking. Let's go. Now, the first one is one of my favorites, and it's, what does this person need to accomplish in the first 12 months after being hired in order for you to consider this hire to be a success? This is a great question because it accomplishes so many things simultaneously. One, you should want to know, do they have reasonable expectations about my first year in this job? That's really important. And have they thought about it? Imagine asking this question and then the person who is going to be your boss can't articulate what success looks like. Do you want to work for that person? No. What if they answer and it's like a bunch of unreasonable things? Do you want to take this job? Probably no. Another thing that can happen is they can hear your question, they can give you an answer, and you go, perfect. I feel really good about that, right? And then you know, moving into it, that you're probably going to be set up for success as far as your tasks are concerned. This is also a really good question because it gets them thinking in terms of you as the candidate, and makes them view you through the lens of somebody who is focused on success. So I love this question. I think it's a great question, and I would never leave an interview without asking it. The next question is, what do you like about working here? This is a good question for a multitude of reasons. One, people generally speaking have a better recollection of a conversation. They have they remember it as more positively the more they got to talk, right? And when person's interviewing you, they don't get to talk that much. You're doing a lot of the talking. This allows them the opportunity to share. And ideally, they're sharing a little bit about them and what they like about the company and what attracted them to the company and what keeps them here, right? That's really meaningful to a lot of people who really like where they're working. This also is great information for you to take in. Are they enthusiastic or do they have no words here, right? Imagine you ask someone this question, what do you like about working here? And they're like, I don't know, I get paid. Okay, that's not compelling. But imagine if they're just talking and they're enthusiastic and they're like, oh man, there's this and this and this. You want someone to be effusive when it comes to talking about why they like working where they're at. That's really good if you see that type of reaction to it. Another thing that's really powerful about this question is it's good information for you to use in a potential thank you email. If you just send a ChatGPT written thank you email that isn't meaningful, it's not going to do much. But if you send a thank you email that specifically references what they shared with you about why they like working at their company, that makes it much more meaningful. So if you're going to write a thank you email, make sure it's a meaningful one. This is a great way to get ammunition to make sure it's meaningful. I would never leave an interview without asking, how would you describe your company's culture, or how would you describe your team's culture? You can choose which one of those makes more sense to you based on your role, based on the environment, based on the organization, etc. Right? If it's a huge company like 30,000 people, maybe you don't ask about the company, maybe you ask about the team. If it's a 100-person company, maybe you just ask about the company, right? So do what makes sense there. But this is, again, one of those things where I'm watching very closely in the way they describe it. Do they describe it in a way that sounds good, right? And it's like, oh, you know what? We're the type of organization where we put our people first and we make decisions based on what will achieve the best outcomes for our people. We're also really big on development and growth, right? That's a great answer. But if they start responding to you and they're like, hey, we're work hard, play hard, we all wear multiple hats, and we're a family-owned company, and they say all those phrases that are a bit like yellow flags in a lot of sense, that would be concerning. So I asked this question because this is really great information for me to understand, okay, what is this going to be like if I get a job here? The reality is few things are worse than leaving a good job, starting a new job, and realizing that it is a cesspool. That is a terrible feeling. You want to avoid that. Growth and development are really important to me. I'm the person who's always working towards getting better. So I like to ask a question around growth and development. Can you tell me a little bit about the growth and development opportunities you have for people who work for your organization? That's a great question to ask because one of two things will happen. They'll either have a list of things and they'll be able to clearly articulate growth and development and the different things they have for people in this organization, or they're going to struggle, right? They're not going to know. And if they're not going to know, that means they haven't taken advantage of it, but it's probably not clear in general. If growth and development is important to you, you really want your boss to be familiar with what those are because you're probably going to need them to advocate on your behalf. And if they don't even know what those things are, they're probably not going to do that when you get hired for that role. The next question that I would like never leave an interview without asking, I call it the closing question. And the question is, do you have any questions or concerns about my ability to do the job? I ask this because if they go, no, Ben, we think you're going to be a great fit, this gives me an opportunity to express to them that I want the job. Every hiring manager wants to hire someone who wants their job. But if they go, actually, Ben, I do have a concern. It seems like you don't have enough ABC experience. This gives you an opportunity to rebuttal that. I have heard people say sometimes that you don't want to put negative thoughts in their mind at the end of the interview. I think that's bullcrap. The reality is people are either going to have these concerns or not. And whether you bring them up doesn't mean they won't exist. But by asking about them, you get the opportunity to rebuttal their concern in a non-defensive manner. So if they say, yeah, Ben, we don't think you have enough management experience, you could say, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. I don't know if I did the best job actually explaining the experience I have leading people. Over the last 7 years, I've led, blah, blah, blah. And you can actually go on and explain that you do have that experience so they feel better about it. The key is you can't be defensive. You have to take ownership. I didn't do a good enough job including that into my resume and explaining it during the interview process. But good news is I do have it, right? So it's really important, but I would never leave an interview without asking this because it can make a huge impact. Another thing that makes a huge impact is also understanding the difference between like a first round interview and a final interview. They are different, and what you need to accomplish is different in these interviews. That's why I made this video here. This video here teaches you how to nail your final interview. So I'm done here, but I'll see you over there.